All right, everyone, I think we probably can get started. This year we are very fortunate to have a true luminary from the CoCo's vibrant past. Someone, if you've listened to the podcast or if you've watched Stevie Stroh's YouTube videos, you have some familiarity with. An accomplished programmer, gave us a couple of great games, maybe more than a couple, gave us a UUCP package. An all-around nice guy, actually fun to talk to and not a Bjork hole. So without further ado, Mr. Rick Adams.
Well, the 26th annual last CoCoFEST, man, it's a good thing I came out here this year, you know, being the last one and all. It sort of reminds me of Final Fantasy. They're up to 15 now. Fantasy wasn't that final, was it? Well, they may, they may run out of Roman numerals at some point, but we won't. Now, in 1990, the Call of Duty 3 was discontinued, and that was a way back. It was like Home Alone 0 was in the theaters, and Windows 3.0 was released. So that's been a while. This is Macaulay Culkin these days. He's still going, and so are we. So we're still coming out with software and hardware, and I've seen it in the exhibit room. And so we have to explain, to people at work. It's like, you're going to what now? Why are you there? It's like, well, my explanation for me is that I'm that guy. Now that's not exactly fair. We're not that guy exactly. We do like our tech on the bleeding edge, and we are early adopters. But also, when we have tech that we like, we hold on to it. I think an example would be the Pebble smartwatch that I have on my watch, on my wrist. And so I would argue an Apple Watch would be a better watch than this. But I like this one because I can program it. So I programmed that watch face, and it's got things on it that you wouldn't have on a normal watch face, like like there's the weather and the time, and how many people are on my website right now, and all that sort of thing. So you're not going to get that with an Apple Watch. But unfortunately, the Pebble Watch is no more. Pebble was bought out by Fitbit because they wanted to close it down and get rid of their largest competitor. So here I am with my with my watch, and it runs various, with a couple of button pushes on my watch, I can control various things around the house. Which brings me to a little side story, which is that my wife has had to deal with being married to a tech guy. And it's been kind of an adventure for her. And maybe she thought she was going to marry somebody like that, but instead she got somebody like that. And so that plays itself out in interesting ways. My wife she doesn't like to stick out. She likes to blend in. Everything should be normal. Our house should look the same as all other houses on the block. She's not into people with strange looking desks that look like that. So we have conversations such as, say, honey, what's in one of those strange things that are in that box that you just bought from Amazon? Oh yeah, those. Well, those are diffused lens RGB LEDs, and each of them has a WS2811 controller. They're Christmas lights. Christmas lights. Oh, Christmas lights. Yeah, I would like to put those in the living room windows. Oh, yeah, that sounds... Wait, what is that? Well, that's a 12 amp power supply, and 800 LEDs, and a Raspberry Pi. So there are Christmas lights. Oh, there's 200 in the basement windows also, with a separate Raspberry Pi down there. And so now your house looks like that. And that's what she realized. She didn't want to live in that house, but she's living in that house. So she says, okay, well, all right, mister, that's all right. That's good for Christmas, but when Christmas is over, you know, those are coming down. Because I couldn't imagine anything different that you could possibly do with weight. I think that we have reached peak nerd right here. So she says, that is it. Those are banished to the basement. You can put them in the basement windows, but not the top windows, okay? I said, basement windows, check. Yeah, we'll get that going on. So every night, so they're on, you know, they're set up in etc. cron tab to start every night, and they go until 11 o'clock at night, and then they wake up again at 4 a.m. in the morning, and then they go until sunset. So let's see if I can remember what was. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. So they can come down now, right? You know, it's February, right? No, we're just getting started. So yeah, so you know, okay, it's March now. March, we can quit now, right? No, we're still going. St. Patrick's Day. Well, let's see, what was the next thing? Oh, yeah. So, okay, so she knew early on there was trouble because when we were first married, we hardly had 2 pennies to rub together, and we lived in an unheated country farmhouse. And she was freezing, so she had her idea of we got a income tax check coming in, a windfall. It's like we could afford to buy something. So she said, I know just what I want us to buy. We want to buy a kerosene heater. I got it all figured out. Specs on it say it'll heat a small warehouse, and I like the sound of that. You know, so we're getting a kerosene heater. And I said, well, actually. I got some guys at work that just bought color computers, and they're telling me really nice things about it. I want to get one of those. You know, Dale Lear is working on a game on that, and she says, I want to be warm. We're getting a kerosene heater, and that is it. So when I bought the computer. It and me were banished to the back room of the house, which was like the back porch with all of the large heat-sapping windows and the drafty door. And so we toiled back there and learning assembler. And I got an EditAssemb Plus cartridge and a cassette tape player and a TV set. We were all set up back there. So I started working on Temple of Rom, and that was about the program. So working back there for long hours, and pretty soon she's saying, you know, I'm getting real tired of you being back there all the time in that back room with that damn computer. You know, so Temple of Rom came about because I was a big fan of who made the adventure cart.
Warren Robinette?
Yeah, Warren Robinette. Yeah, that was an Atari VCS system thing. Was it Activision that did that?
No, that was actually Atari.
Okay. I was a big fan of that, but I didn't like the way that, I loved the game, but you would go to the edge of the screen, and you would go off the edge of the screen, and blink, you would be in another screen, and you'd be on the left. So you do it that way. And I'm like, why can't you just smooth scroll the thing as soon as you get toward the close of the edge? Why can't you just smooth scroll it over? So that's what I did with that. Plus, I was a big fan of the Catherine Critt's Derini Chronicles series of novels, which were sort of medieval, like fantasy type things. So that's where the transfer portals came in. That little circle with the dot in it. You hit that, and all of a sudden, boom, you're someplace else. And that was an element from the Derini novels that I incorporated into the game. So I wrote up a whole like I wrote up the instruction booklet and everything. It was like, you know, this ancient race of sorcerers had this homeland, and the bad guys came, and the orcs drove them out, and they took over the Temple of Ram, which was the center of their society, and so got that all ready and sent that off to Tandy. Dale Lear had, was my co-worker, by that time had sent off Doubleback, and they had bought it. And so Dale told me, well, you should hear back from them in about 3 weeks. I was like, 3 weeks? That's, you know, 21 days. And I'm sorry, I'm just counting off the days. And after about 1.5 weeks, Mark Siegel called me up. I remember I was at work, and he said, this is Mark Siegel at Tandy. Hello. You know? And he says, you know, we'd like to buy your game. Oh, yeah. That'd be okay with you? Yeah, that would be fascinating, really. And he says, I love it. It's a beautiful game. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that quite right. Could you say that again? I mean, that's a cliche. But I actually experienced it, because it's like, I heard the words. I knew what they meant. But I was just so overcome, I couldn't process it. I was like, I have to hear that again to really understand what you said. And I said, it's a beautiful game. You know, and I was like, man, it's music to my ears. He says, I love the game. He says, hate the name though. Temple of Ram, yeah, we're changing that. And I said, okay, you can change that to whatever you want. But they never, you know, that never came out again, so Temple of Ram it was. And so the whole instruction book that I wrote, well, they tossed that all out. You know, so, and they didn't tell me. So they sent me a cartridge, and I got it, ripped off the shrink wrap immediately, opened it up, and opened up the instruction booklet, and it says, you are a space explorer for the World Federation of Worlds, and you have been tasked with exploring the planet Romlock. And, you know, I was like, where did this come from? You know, it's like, oh, you gave it a space theme. It has to have a space. All right, fine. So, and so then the first royalty check rolled around. And I opened it, and I read the figures, but once again, it's like, my brain's not processing this. And I showed it to my wife, and she says, honey, why don't you go in the back room and tinker with that damn computer?
Did she get the heater?
She did. With the second, there was the federal income tax check, and we bought the computer with that. And then there was the state check, and we got the heater with that. But to this day, she's kind of salty that those two items were bought in that particular order. So I had great success with Temple of Ram, and that felt really good. So I decided to let's see if we can make lightning strike twice. So I worked on another game, which I called Bomb Threat. And that one, I shot that around, and Tandy didn't want to buy it. They did suggest some changes to it, and I made the changes, and then they just weren't getting back to me, and I kind of bugged them a bit, and then they said, okay, we're just, you know, okay, since you asked so insistently, we're not going to buy it. So, so that one languished for many years. But I had the discs for it in the basement. I knew right where they were. And, well, many years went by, and it's like, I'd like to take a look at that game again. Let's see if I can find those discs. Couldn't find them. So, in my basement, it's kind of an archaeological adventure to go into my basement, because there's a lot of stuff down there. So, I always figured, you know, yeah, well, it wasn't where I last left it, but somewhere in the Precambrian layer of that archaeological dig is probably the discs. And I would go down on, I would, put my little headlamp on and go down there every once in a while and dig for it. Over the years, it's like, we finally concluded it's just not there. So, one day my kids were talking about, they love that game, because they remember playing it. They played the Temple of Ram to death. and they played that game, which, you know, they didn't call it Bomb Threat, they called it the tractor game, because it had a little tractor moving around and moving boxes. And one day my oldest son was talking to my middle son, and they were reminiscing about that game, and they said, hey, you know, you remember Dad used to come with us to the elementary schools when they had, like, you know, you're visiting Dad to tell the class what he does and spice up the class day, you know. So I would, you know, make video games. I mean, I would make VCR tapes of me playing the games and then come and show them at the school. They said, we have one of those. We know where those are. So they came home, ran down to the basement, and pulled it out. And so here is my lost game. Load M Bomb. I don't talk about this game much while going through TSA. And there it is. 1984, huh? Yeah. So there's the title screen. And then here's player one's going to play it. So you're in charge of a warehouse full of merchandise, and some crazy guy has put bombs in the various crates in the warehouse. Some of them are out in the open, and some of them are hidden inside the crates. Well, that one just killed me. So that's life one gone. You notice there's 2 tractors inside now. So now there's more bombs and more crates. And however, you know, so you can push the crates away from the bombs, or the bombs away from the crates if you're feeling really lucky. And then after all the bombs explode, it adds up. How much merchandise did you save? Oops, there went the crate full of Dino Wars. So let's see, so what's next here? Shanghai, yes, that was fun. So Activision called me up. I really liked Activision. Activision had a good rep with me because I liked all of their games. So when they called me up and said, hey, Mark Siegel gave us your number. Yes, and we would like you to do a game for us. Yes, I'd like that very much. So they gave me this, and so this was already working on a number of other computers, so I just had to port it over to the color computer. And let's see, not much to say about that, other than, well, the little Easter egg. Oh, there's an Easter egg in Temple of Rom, too. You probably know about it.
This game is also known as the Mahjong clone.
Yes.
As it was recently referred to.
Yes, yes.
No, it was a little bit more forceful than that.
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah, so it was, you know, yeah, I ported this from, you know, this game was done on other computers, so I just ported it for the color computer. But, you know, porting does involve, you know, writing it from scratch, but you have to look at the specs and stuff and figure out how it's supposed to look. And during all of the development, they had yellow tiles, yellow edges on the tiles, so it was supposed to be like a Mahjong set. And Mahjong sets, you know, when they get old, the edges of the actual, like, ivory tiles, you know, turn yellow, you know. It needs some retro bright or something. So, and so that's what it looked like all during development. And then at the very last moment, they said, okay, now for the last change before we roll this out, we want you to change to a different color set. We don't like the yellow edges. So I made a little hot spot, you know, up in the left corner. You know, up about, it's real tiny, it's about here. And you click on that, it's like 1 pixel by 1 pixel, because I was really scared that they would find it. And, but they, you know, nobody did. And if you click on that, then you get a third, you know, rather than RGB and composite, you get a third color set, which was the original color set, which is how I wanted to play it, because that's how I got used to seeing it. So the Easter egg on Temple of Rom is that if you hold the button down long enough, you can go through walls. And it doesn't really help you. I had grandiose plans for that game. I was going to put like a little McDonald's on the outside so you could visit it if you went through the walls. That never happened. And then there, up toward the top of the maze, there was a really large room that was the size of the screen, and there was going to be like a working Space Invaders game in there. Well, that never happened. Maybe in the next version. So that was the Easter egg for that. So what was that? What else did I wanted to say about Shanghai? I do not remember.
A little message you left to the guy who did this assembly.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you. I got a call from the guy who was burning the ROMs when they were making the Shanghai cartoons, and he had a question for me. I had to put a little message in, like at the very end of the image. That said, "Hello, Don. Good to see you again." And this was a reference to a guy named Don Hutchison who had a little hobby of disassembling all our ROMs and figuring out how we did things. And so I left a message for him. Well, the guy who's burning the ROMs, you know, he says, "Well, I got to make sure this image is okay. So let me take a look at it." And it's like, "Hi, Don. Good to see you again." The guy's name was Don. He was one spooked individual when he called me up, let me tell you. So that brings me to The Last Ninja. So Activision called me up again, and they said, "Well, we want you to do another game for us." And I said, "That sounds great." It turns out they told me that Dale Lear had turned it down. And Dale Lear is a pretty smart guy. That should have been a clue for me, but it wasn't. You know, they said, so they told me all, you know, here's the time schedule, here's what we want you to do, and it's like, okay, that sounds like a really tough project, and that sounds like a really insane time schedule. But I'm young, I'm strong, I can pull this off. I was wrong. So I worked on that thing. So I went to the back room and worked on that for, you know, and I was working on it like till 2 a.m. every night. And eventually it just turned out, to make a long story short, it's like, I can't do this. So my project manager was the same one that I had for Shanghai. It was a really nice lady. Her first name was Sherry, I forget her last name. And they had told me, if it turns out that you can't make the schedule, let us know right away. I said, okay, well, time to face the music. So I called them up and said, all right, I'm not going to make it. They said, okay, we'll get back to you. And so they did, and so they called me down to Activision headquarters once again. And yeah, everybody loves a good train wreck. Yeah. I have a saying about this project, which is that success has many fathers, failure is an orphan, but everyone loves a good train wreck. So everybody that wants, you know, I always get these phone calls. Hey, are you Rick Adams? Yeah. You know, you're the one, you know, the guy that did the color computer games. Yeah. Hey, look, I'm doing a book. I want to talk about this. It's like, well, there's a reason for that. It's a good story. I do not hold it against them. I mean, what are you going to do? That's the big story, which is, you know, the game that didn't happen. So they called me down. I walked the final mile down to the door where they opened it up. They said, we found another developer that we've got to take it. And so they opened up the door, and there was that guy. Steve Bjork. Now, so Steve was really happy because it's like, oh, I get to do this game. This is going to be awesome. And so they're pulling me in to rescue this game. And so he's looking over the source code as I walk in the door. He said, oh, I see your problem right here. You got the upper levels programmed in C and the lower levels in assembler. No, that needs to be all in assembler. That'll make it much more efficient. I was like, well, there's a degree of truth in what he says, but you know, but it doesn't make that much different if the upper level is written in C. But you know, whatever you say, because at that point, I wanted to be rid of this project. So, you know, they told me, hey, you know, all the early completion bonuses that we were going to give you if you did this game on time, we're going to give those to Steve. Would that be okay with you? And I said, well, you know, early completion bonus is early completion bonus, and you know, that's 0 for 3. Yeah, give it to Steve. Give 2 of them to Steve. I don't care, as long as I walk out of here, you know, like still alive. So Steve said he'd take it on, and he was really happy. He's like, and he heard that, you know, he's going to get that money. And he's like, you know, oh man, we are going to make a mint. This is awesome. And he's looking over the source code. Yeah, I can fix this. I can fix this. This is going to be awesome. So, jump forward about a year or so, and we're in a bar after a Rainbow Fest, and Steve's across the table from me, and he was not a happy camper. And he leans over to me and he says, "I'll have you know, we took a bath on that game." You know, and he was kind of mad. He was kind of wanting to pick a bone with me, and I just told him, Steve, it was a really unhappy time for all concerned. That's just all I'm going to say about that. He was still sort of staring daggers at me, and I decided, you know, maybe I should go back to my room and do something else for a while. So now let's see. The thing about Steve is that he's done more, I think he's done more games than anybody else. He's done more games than Dale, right? Certainly more than me. You remember how, let's see, I have to go into diplomatic mode here. Because there are some people that are just dying for me to say something bad about Steve. He's a guy that has that kind of guy hanging around. I like Steve. I do understand that, you know, there are a lot of people that think he has an overdeveloped sense of his place in the universe. For me, that's part of his charm. Your mileage may vary. But I absolutely have to like the guy. And I've explained that to people, and they say, yeah.
He actually, one of the CoCoFEST he was at, said, kind of apologized, says, you know, I realized in the past I've come on over too strong and things like that. And so he kind of acknowledged his personality flaws in the past.
Yep. And I've got mine, you know, and so when I say that I like Steve York, I'm not being coy. I actually do like the guy. But when I explain what he's like to people, they're like, well, you sound like you need to make up your mind. Do you love him or do you hate him? You know? And I'm like, well, can't it be both? You know? And I thought, how do I explain this to people? And so then it suddenly dawned on me. Do you know, there was a writer for Rainbow, Marty Goodwin, and they always called him the Howard Cosell of the Coco world. Because Howard Cosell is, you know, very controversial, very outspoken, very brash, and that's the sort of person that Marty was. So I said, well, so who's the person that corresponds to Steve York? And then it was like, it's obvious. Who do we know that has a large body of work? Is enviably secure about his place in the universe, but has some people that don't like him. And there you have it. Oh my! It's perfect. Steve York is William frickin' Shatner. And that really explains it, because, I mean, you know, even Takei loves the Shat. Everyone loves the Shat. And that's just how it is.
The Shat.
Gotta have some William Shat.
Is that past tense for anything?
Huh?
Is Shat past tense for anything?
No, it isn't. Who was the guy that the guy that played Wesley on The Next Generation, I can't, Will Wheaton, yeah. He has a love-hate relationship with William Shatner. He has a long story where he relates how when he first met William Shatner was kind of a jerk to him. And so he always refers to him very derogatorily as, William frickin' Shatner. Only he doesn't use the word frickin'. So, WFS for short. So, so what's next? Yes, Last Ninja, got rid of it. My wife still says, anytime I'm thinking about taking on a new project, she says, now this isn't going to be another Last Ninja deal, right? Because that project really hurt me. It probably hurt Steve too, and I'm sorry about that.
Did that game get finished? Did somebody finish that game?
No.
No, nobody did. He brought his discs of the game to a CoCoFEST once, and I've seen a video where he sort of demoed it. And earlier, to somebody who asked, I think it was one of the podcasts, I said that what I saw in the video was like no different than what I gave him. That's actually not true. I took a closer look at the video, and the enemies did like move around and kind of look like they were going to fight you. So so there he did do other things. And he didn't look exactly like it did when I handed it to him. So I slammed it. So just set the record straight.
What was the problem with the Last Ninja? Was it size? Was it the Coco wasn't powerful enough?
Well, they wanted to do it in OS 9, and I didn't think OS 9 was good. I like OS 9, but I didn't think OS 9 was a good fit for that game. What are you doing? Huh? He's getting a legal record.
2018.
So, yeah. The problem with the game was that the timetable was insane. It was like 3 or 4 months, and the game was very complex, and there were no specs. They gave us an Amiga and said, "Here's the game on an Amiga. Play that through, and then port it." And it's like, well, I can't play it through. I can't get past level 3. They give me data for all the levels, and I can draw all the levels. Steve was really fit to be tied. He said there was this one screen where there was a river and there was stepping stones in the river, and you hop across the stepping stones. Okay, I can do that. Yeah, what they didn't tell me was that when you got halfway across, this frickin' dragon came out of the river and does battle with you. Nobody ever mentioned that little thing to me. So he didn't think that was fair. I didn't think that was fair either. And yeah, it just couldn't be done in the time frame that they gave us.
Time was the real problem.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And probably that they were making it based on the Amiga version instead of some like the Commodore 64 versions.
Right, and they didn't give you good specs. And I was overconfident. I thought this is going to be tough, but I can do it. I'm hot stuff. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, right. So that was a good life lesson for me. It was like, number one, no is a very useful word. And 2, I am not immortal. So after that was over, it's like I came out of that room, gave it to Steve York. Glory, hallelujah! I am free. I'm free at last. And so then it's like, well, what's my next game gonna? Well, I don't want to do a game. I'm not in the mood to do a game right now. I don't want to do anything. So I did a whole lot of nothing for a while. And and then I started doing things for OS 9, various things here and there, including the UUCP package. That was kind of fun. Should I go down that rabbit hole, the UUCP package?
Sure.
Okay. Well, there was like I was like doing stuff for Delphi then, and then they had so you had the Delphi people and you had the CompuServe people. And they had sort of a friendly rivalry going. And it was Mark Griffith and some people were making a lot of noise about their work on a UCP package. And I had all kinds of people telling me, Rick, you should do a UCP package. I'm like, yeah, I'm not in the mood. Sorry. Oh no, really, you should. And they'd send me like specs for, you know, all the different documents that documented how it all worked and stuff. And I was the Usenet administrator at our Usenet node at work, you know, so I knew what UDCP was and how it worked and stuff, but, you know, I didn't want to really do anything on it. So all the CoCoFEST people were saying, you know, we're almost ready, we have it almost ready, almost ready, almost ready. And it's like, in about a week, we're going to come out with it, it's going to be awesome, and we're going to post it, and you can download it on CoCoFEST only. And that kind of stuck in my craw a little. Although when I thought about it, it's like, well, you know, they did the work. They get to say what happens to their creation. That is fair. But I didn't like it. So, where were those specs again? So I pulled them down off the shelf and I started reading through and saying, well, let me try this out. So, in about 3 weeks, I had something sort of up and running. I could, you know, send email. And they had the color computer, I don't know if it was the mailing list or if it was the Usenet group. But Mark Griffith or one of their people posted, if you can read this, this will be the first posting to this mailing list from a color computer. And I'd say, actually, I posted one a week ago. And to their credit, they were really nice. They're like, holy crap, really? You've been working on this? That's awesome. We didn't know you were working on that. Oh, we are so happy about that. You know, so they were really nice about it. You know, it was like, you know, so that's how that happened. And then various people upgraded that. Bill Noble couldn't be here, unfortunately. I would have liked to have met him. Who else was on it?
Bob Bilson?
Yes.
Worked on that a little bit too. Wow.
Yep. So that's what happened with that. So now we come to bomb threat. So Curtis, was it you that got me started on emulators?
Yeah.
You should try it. Yeah, a whole bunch of people on Skype said you should try out these emulators. And I said, you know, so I tried them out. I was like, wow, that's a code computer on my laptop. That's pretty great. And then all these people were saying, okay, now here's how you do a development environment. You know, and I said, oh, really? Okay, so I can do a development environment on my Raspberry Pi or on Windows. You know, so bit by bit I got that going. And then I said, well, I've got the gameplay video for the, I made one more trip to the basement to look for those discs, and I couldn't find them. I said, let's see what I can do. So this is the title screen from an emulator, and I could probably just pull it up right now, actually. So I got it. I knew I wasn't going to do the whole game for the show. You know, it's like, well, if I can do the title screen, that'll be pretty good. You know, that'll be enough. You know, and then I got the title screen and a tiny bit of gameplay. So let's see if I can pull that up.
Need a couple icons there.
Yeah, I think. Well, it moved everything around on my desktop, you know.
It's easier to find them all when they're all just right out there.
Yeah. Where's the Arrange by Coco menu item? Yeah, I can't find anything. No, not quite. No, it's not there. Okay, well, tomorrow I'll be showing you. Well, right now I'm just looking for a computer. It's like, where did I put that? No.
Halfway down on the right. There you go.
So did I put that? Yep.
All that cocoa content.
Nope, not there. Oh, Coco, there we go. Bomb threat. Alright. So actually, let me find my VCC icon.
To the right. Midway down.
Click the Shanghai pixel.
So we're getting tile set to this?
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
The sounds are not the same. My kids are not happy about that. They're all about the sounds.
Animated.
Yep. So I'll hit 1 for 1 player game, or you can won't do you any good.
He starts over. That's really cool though. Seeing it.
So, I'm back.
I got one question for you.
Sure.
You know that you know about the sequel to Temple of Ron, don't you? Yeah, in Chicago. Yeah, it's City Hall.
Model manual.
Yeah. Well, he is afterwards.
So any more questions? Because I got no more. So.
Where'd you get that really cool shirt that you're wearing?
See that crazy man that just asked me the question.
The design on the shirt, of course.
Who's the artist?
Oh right, yeah, my brother Joel. I mean, my son. I'm not nervous or anything. No.
That's good. He's not promoting Stevie. Okay, that makes much more sense.
Now, where'd you get your shirt from, Alan Huffman? That's a...
This was my favorite of all the shirts that he did, so I decided I was going to represent and put this on.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So, yeah, my sons were my beta testers. My daughter hadn't been born yet. Although my Shanghai manager sent flowers when she was born. So.
I think it's very cool how that project came back together from a Skype group we created for our weekly talk show, and it turned into you starting this project again. So
right.
That's absolutely amazing.
And let me tell you, it's like, you know, you may think of me as a star. I'm not the star. You guys are the stars. You know, because you've been coming here year after year. You're producing all the software and the hardware. You know, I'm just coming back. And where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, wrapping up. Yeah, I don't know. My brain is just sort of fried now. Yes?
Okay. Developing in 1984, developing in 2017 for the Coco. What's the biggest difference you've been seeing?
Oh my goodness, yes! That brings me back to a little side story on Temple of Ram that I forgot to tell you, which some of you have probably heard. Yes, Temple of Ram, cassette tapes, assembler program. Well, actually it was on 3 cassette tapes, 3 20-minute cassette tapes. So when I had to do some development on Temple of Ram, I had to figure out which tape the problem was on, read that in, that's 20 minutes, work on that for a while, and then write that out. That's 20 minutes more. If I wanted to play the whole game, you had to load the first 20 minutes. You know. Oh no, actually when you assembled it, you would have to load in the source, assemble it, and I don't even remember how it all fit together, but somehow it all fit together into one thing. So if somebody disassembles Temple of Ram, they'll find a very strange structure. They'll find a bunch of code, nothing, a bunch of code, nothing, and a bunch of code. And you know, and with jumps through indirects in between them. And that's because this was on the first tape, that was on the second tape, that was on the third tape. But my color computer at the time, and the first color computer that I had, was with the chiclet keys, silver, and it had a problem in the power supply, where if the power supply was on too long, or got too hot, it would start fuzzing, you'd see the video fuzzing out, and then it would die. And so I wanted to track down what the problem was, so I got a can of Freon, took the cover off it. Well, you know, the cover's off it all the time on mine. And when it would start to fuzz out, I grabbed the Freon, I go, and it would stabilize. Well, one time it starts to fuzz out, and I'm running out of 20-minute tape, and I'm in the middle of the tape. I don't want to have to do that all over again. I'm going to have to read in the 20 minutes, make the changes if I can remember what those were, and write it back out again, another 20 minutes. I don't want that. So I want this thing to work. So I would spray it with Freon, and the power supply would turn into a little ice sculpture, and it would stabilize long enough to write out the last block of the tape. Well, that worked pretty good, and I sort of got used to doing that. Until one day, I'm writing out a tape, and the video starts to fuzz out a little bit. I grab the Freon, and I pointed it, and nothing happened. And I'm like, oh no. So I leaned over, I'm like, I'm doing that, and the tape relay is clicking. Is that the last one? Nope. And a lot of little stars are appearing in front of my eyes. And finally I hear that click. There's a special sound to the last click. It's like, that is the last one. It's like, oh, that's it. So I got a new Coco after that.
Very cool. All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate you being part of our podcast. We're CoCoFEST.
All right.
It's awesome.